guys, it's Tanya.
You look like a bird. The only thing we can see are your eyebrows.
Your comfort is not more important than disabled people being able to live.
Nobody cares. In 2009, they had 15 girls referred to the clinic. 2017, 1,071 girls.
The best thing for me right now is to take a step away from this relationship.
Good. You are a head wreck. Oh, God. I've sterilized so many kids.
It's exposed the messianic zeal of anti-trans campaigners because they've hijacked this report.
There are so many words coming out of her mouth, but she's saying nothing at the same time.
So I brought a bunch of extra masks.
Why is wokeness so anti-fun? Learn this person also goes by Roxy Tickle. Gross.
Don't waste their time lying to them about caring about them.
Tell trans people I care about them. Okay, well, I can take that off my list. Red light district, dominatrix, Ho from the Netherlands.
One of the hardest things about being medically vulnerable.
She probably is on coke. Welcome back to the Jack Jewell podcast. I'm starting today's podcast with a vent because I got up at 5:30 this morning to film, and for us that still have a day job, you know, you really have to work in the heavy commitment involved for YouTube, and unfortunately the £60 a month I earn from AdSense is not paying my mortgage yet. However, I was ready to set up, you know, had about an hour and a half to film, and I have to go pick up a dog soon that I'm looking after because, you know, I like to extra pack my schedule. And then right when I was about to start, spilled a mug of coffee all over the carpet. And you know, when you do something like that and you just look at it and go, I just can't be bothered to have to sort this out because it's just so messy. Like the difference between spilling a cup of coffee on carpet and wooden floor is like night and day. I go into this mental spiral thinking like, am I going to be able to get it out? What if it doesn't all come out? What if I have stained carpets forever? Am I going to have to get carpet cleaners in? And it's just like a lot. But anyway, welcome back to the podcast. This is episode 11 and it is just yours truly today. I celebrated my 30th birthday over the weekend, so I made a post on my YouTube about it and got lots of very lovely comments. So thank you everyone for wishing me a happy birthday. I'm excited. I think I did mention in the post that this time last year I was really not in a good place. I have a long-term health issue that is chronic pain related, and it was, you know, for 2.5 years it was so bad that I found it very hard to function and spend lots of time off work. It sort of dominated my whole existence. So when I turned 29, I was terrified of turning 30 because I really didn't want to get to 30 and still be in the same scenario and still not. I know that all of our futures are uncertain, right? But when you're facing a future that you don't even know if you're going to be able to work or achieve anything again, and you're not even 30, that is very frightening, especially for someone who grew up being an overachiever or something. So in many ways, it made me address some of the coping mechanisms I have. I was petrified of getting to this year. And then, you know, from about August, things have been really good. And I've been able to live a life in spite of being in pain in the things I manage. I'm mainly focused on the things I'm doing, very busy. So I'm very, very grateful for that. And turning 30 for that reason was really positive for me because, you know, I have this channel going, which is going really well. And I find it really fun. And it's like a new chapter. So thanks to everyone who has supported me. But before we get started, I feel like I need a tagline for this podcast because, you know, it's not like Jack Jewell is a famous person. So if someone looks at it, they're like, what is that? So at the very least, obviously, those of you who watch my podcast, you know what I'm about. But welcome to the Jack Jewell podcast, where we talk about crazy things going on in the world, particularly LGBT discourse from the point of view of a gay man in the UK. So I like that. Obviously, you know, we talk about social politics, LGBT, let's face it, mainly trans, because that's all that's going on right now. And then I also have guests on. As usual, every week at the moment, so much is happening in the trans space. In some ways, I'm like, oh my God, this is just all consuming. But I am very proud to live in the UK, although I'm not from the UK, but I've lived here for 10 years. I'm very proud to live in this country because we are the country making the most progress on this situation. We have the bravest, most outspoken women in this country. And I think thanks to J.K. Rowling, she has opened that door and made it more safe for other women to, you know, have the same beliefs or speak out because she's uncancelable, right? Very proud to be in a country where she lives. The CASS review. Hopefully most of you have heard of this. Essentially, in the UK, Hilary Cass is a pediatrician. She has been doing a systematic review of gender medicine in the National Health Service. So the NHS is our public body of healthcare. So if you are a taxpayer in the UK, or if you're anyone in the UK for that matter, you have access to free healthcare. So you can go to the GP for free. If you need referrals, you get them for free. If you need surgery, you get them for free. However, that system is completely broken, and now any referral you get takes about 2 years. A lot of the reason all the gender medicine stuff in here went to shit is for those reasons, with the NHS being so strained, because this happened after the downfall of the GIDS clinic, which stands for Gender Identity Development Service, at the Tavistock Centre, which is in London. So this is for child and adolescent services, and any kid who is struggling with their quote unquote gender identity was referred here. It started as an incredibly niche thing. You can sort of see how this has spiraled out of control, because when something is so niche and so rare, and they think, okay, well, there's only been like 2 boys referred this year, and they are clearly extremely gender dysphoric. They've sort of spontaneously come on these feelings themselves. They've not been influenced by an online pressure or the media. And we're going to give them these puberty blockers. And then no one really says anything, you know. I mean, even if it doesn't go that well, it's like 2 people, and it's very niche. It's very under the radar. But to give you some stats, in 2009, they had 15 girls referred to the clinic. And then by 2017, they had 1,071 girls referred that year. So you can just see the crazy increase. And on the graph here, you just see, particularly from 2014, it spiked, and the correlation between the online culture and the social contagion is just, you know, palpable by looking at this. I've read so much about the GIDS clinic. I read Hannah Barnes' book, Time to Think. I've seen lots of interviews of, you know, whistleblowers that have worked there. Clinicians were raising concerns at this clinic since 2005. Literally since that early, people were saying, wait, hang on, these kids aren't being assessed properly. They're not being looked at holistically, and all the other issues that are going on with them, like their family life, their neurodiversity, past abuse, all that kind of stuff. Those people were ostracized. So you had people leaving as early as 2005 for feeling uncomfortable and that they couldn't make a difference. And you can really see, for people that think this issue has sprung out of the ground, you know, like all these daisy puberty blocker kids, just like, hello, it really has been a slow burn, and it's been an exponential problem. It's the same with women's spaces and gender identity issues coming into law. It's been going under the radar and simmering, and then now all the volcanoes are exploding, and people are going, what the fuck? Why are you sterilizing gay kids? But that is where we're at. And in 2020, it kind of came under scrutiny because they got lawsuits against it, and particularly one, Kira Bell, who was public about it and still is. She sued the NHS for not looking into her other issues. Like, she realized that she's a lesbian. That was not explored. That was a big issue at the clinic, is that they would joke about there being no gay kids left. And Dr. Az Hakim, who I interviewed on a couple of podcasts ago, a psychiatrist, he spoke to a clinician there, and the clinician said, well, would it be any worse if they were gay? It was completely ideologically driven. This was commissioned to do a full systematic review of the services within the UK, as well as gender medicine more broadly for adolescents. Is there any basis for doing it to begin with? Is there evidence that this is beneficial anywhere? Something it really looked cleanly at is puberty blockers. And puberty blockers are also something that just got way out of hand, because in the Netherlands, they were the first one to do it. You might have heard of the Dutch protocol study. They decided to pioneer these puberty blockers and try them out. And I guess the thinking largely came from, they noticed a lot of older trans women, so males identifying as women, were very unhappy with their passability and the fact that they don't look like women. They thought, okay, well, if we can intervene in their puberty, which is how all those changes come about, a lot of these boys will probably be more comfortable. So in that sense, it makes sense, right? But then the ethical issue of, is it okay to stop a child's whole development wasn't really, I'm not sure how well that was considered. However, they did at least have much more stringent inclusion criteria. So you had to be severely gender dysphoric from a young age, and you had to have no other comorbid issues. So autism, you know, bipolar disorder, like all of that stuff was out. Self-harm, all the things that we see today. And while it was mainly boys, there were some girls in the study as well. But the issue is that study was just inconclusive. Like, it was not a successful study because they lost many kids to not being able to follow them up. Loads dropped out. One of them died because most of these kids got genital reassignment surgery. One of the boys died because of the complications from the vaginoplasty. Most of the boys had to get a vaginoplasty that also used tissue from the colon because their penis wasn't big enough. Same that we're seeing with Jazz Jennings and a lot of other kids have had their puberty blocked. So it was not a successful study. It didn't show that there was a very clear medical benefit from going on the blockers, but then all the other clinics in the world just seemed to lap up those puberty blockers and say, give me a bit of those, roll them out for having no basis. So in the CASS report, she did an incredible review, of course, looked at all the existing scientific studies in which these sort of medicines are used, and something, even though this is the most comprehensive review into gender medicine in the entire world and took 4 years to produce and could not be more thorough, the trans activists are throwing it out and saying this has been completely overlooking lots of important things. It's completely biased. And they're complaining that some of the studies were not included because they weren't of high quality enough, and that the high quality bar was that they weren't double blind. And that means that you have a control group, someone who actually gets a sugar pill, and then you have the active group who gets like testosterone or something. But in this kind of thing, those kids would know whether or not they're on testosterone. But that's actually not true. The reason why lots of the studies were thrown out is because they were of poor quality. So a lot of the stuff you see is they collect data via surveys. Anyone could answer that. They could say, I'm a trans kid, I'm going to answer this survey, even if they're not. They also lose loads of people up to review. They say that their puberty blocker trial was successful because they followed up the patients 3 months after. It was relatively positive, but these kind of drugs obviously affected someone's life for years and years and years. And some people detransition 7 years after they transition. So that's why a lot of them were thrown out. Another thing that trans activists say is, oh, the report is trying to limit transition for adults. It's saying that people shouldn't transition before the age of 25, which is totally not true. And I'll explain why in a second. But some of the findings this report had, and this is a huge report, it's over 300 pages. I read the kind of first executive summary stage, so I'll put the link in the description and in the show notes. For a summary, some of the findings was there is weak evidence supporting puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones in minors. The clinicians in the UK, they were not looking at any issues except gender, so they weren't looking holistically at what's going on for you in your whole life. Do you have any other mental health problems? How's your life at home? All of that kind of stuff. There's no evidence of puberty blockers and hormones reduce risks of suicide as claimed. So obviously, do you want a trans child or a dead child? That was being parroted by all the clinicians for a very long time, and mermaids, the different charities lobbying for this child transition. They looked into that, and there is no scientific basis to support that claim. Kids suffering from gender dysphoria are about the same risk of self-harm or suicide as the kids suffering from any other mental health disorder. But the thing is, most suffering with gender dysphoria also have other mental health disorders. So you can't even base it down to that. They also, we're looking at kids' sexuality and them being gay. So that's a big one. They also found that social transition has no evidence and actually makes it more likely to end up on a medical pathway. So I'm very glad this was included, because I see a lot of people in this space who are even against child transition. It's saying, let them transition socially. That's fine. Let them transition socially. But actually, social transition is not a neutral act. If you are 9 years old and you say, I want to be a boy, they let you socially transition, cut your hair, change your clothes, change your name. Not only do you get a lot of praise and, you're very brave for doing this, it can give a kid who feels unseen and is struggling with who they are and kind of what they have to offer to the world. You are now suddenly you're very specific as a person. Being trans is a very specific thing, and it really will make people remember you, right? So through years of being called a certain name and living in this sort of identity, you can see how it starts to cement. And then it's far more likely you will end up at a gender clinic, even at 18 years old, ready on a path to sterility and surgery, for which you may regret. The report is saying that, any kid who's considering social transition, they need to be seen by the therapeutic services as soon as possible. This one's crazy. While this is all about adolescent and child gender services, they wanted to consult all of the adult gender services in the UK. They asked all these clinics to support them in doing research, gathering data, and they refused. So they've said, no, we won't cooperate. And that really just sheds a light on not just the child's medical case, but what is the scientific basis for all of this. And clearly, if those clinics were proud of what they do and they knew they were helping lots of people, they would be more than willing to show them everything. But one, they probably haven't gathered the data that they should, so it's not even there. And two, there's probably a lot they want to hide. And three, they're just scared that whatever they say, their services will be under threat. But that's just not how we progress. If you just try and hide something, that it's going to end much worse for you. I think it's obvious that some people transition and live happy lives, so it couldn't be the case that it benefits no one, but perhaps the benefits aren't as sweeping as they claim. Oh, this YouTuber, Matt Bernstein, he's super cringe and he makes these woke videos, all these sweeping claims. He posted on Twitter about this. Someone had said, like, how do you support the fact that detransition is rare? And he linked this video and it's like, oh, only 1% of kids detransition. And I replied and I said, I understand, you're using this statistic, but the reality is that I didn't even tell him it's way higher than 1%. You're an idiot. I said, we don't know what the percentage is because clinics don't follow patients up and they disappear. And I said, using the statistic is lazy. And then he blocked me, of course. It just goes to show how pathetic they are. We're talking about kids, people arguing about a thing that being gender medicine. And one group is saying this is complete child abuse, complete abuse of children's rights. And the other group is saying this is saving children's lives. So you could not get more far apart. That whole being on the right side of history thing, all of us who are campaigning for kids to be protected from this know that this is not appropriate and that it is not morally correct. And I don't know what's going on in those people's heads because they couldn't all be that dumb, but they're so captured by ideology. They're one day going to say, oh my God, that's going to be difficult to come to terms with. I've been advocating for abuse for years. I'd like to look a bit at the response to this because obviously, for the most part, things were very positive. But then you have some of the more ideological organizations. Gender GP is the private gender medicine clinic in the UK who treats kids, basically. They were discredited already, even though they're still going. And you can see the woman here, she looks very haggard from her years of slaving away, sterilizing kids, puberty. She's like, oh God, I've sterilized so many kids. Life is like really grating on me now. NHS issues urgent warning for discredited transgender clinic. Gender GP is said to not provide physiological or psychological support to its patients. No surprise there. So they're basically just an on-demand service. You make an appointment, you say, I've been struggling with this for years, and then they give you the drugs, basically. And you know what? I would love to do like an undercover video with Gender GP or a similar service and record it. I don't know if that's legal, but I would love to do that. I would love to show up with like a mustache, being quite masculine and saying like, yeah, I've thought I was a girl since I was 3. And I would also be quite curious to say, like, when I put on women's clothing, I get sexually aroused because they obviously get a lot of that. Do you know what I mean? With the AGPs. But this woman I've read about her before, and she was someone who had tried many other avenues in life to make it big and try and start some company that found a gold mine, basically. I forget what those other ones were, but in that book, Time to Think, they talk about her history. And then she finally found, gender medicine. And she became the person that, for the very little gatekeeping there was in the UK, and the main one was just the waiting list. It wasn't really difficult to get the drugs once you were seen. But she became the person that solved that issue, because if any parent wanted to sterilize their kids or mutilate their kid, they could just go to Gender GP and pay for it. So even though this report is so comprehensive, could not be more comprehensive, and also it's written very compassionately. It's not saying like this is pseudoscience and like kids are being abused. It doesn't use language like that. But they posted to Twitter, we are totally shocked and appalled by the recommendations to the NHS made in the CASS report and urge NHS England to take heed of international experts. We know that children and young people will suffer and die if these recommendations are implemented, of course. So no scientific basis that kids commit suicide, but okay, you're still going with that. Gender GP will continue to provide help for all people of any age who are transgender and who are seeking gender-affirming care. We will continue to follow the evidence-based guidelines laid out by the WPATH Standards of Care and the Endocrine Society guidelines. Like, honestly, bitch, how thick are you? surely you've seen the W path expose. These people, I posted on Twitter, they are the Macbeth of trans. They will dig their heels in until the last day, until they take their last breath. Their last breath in life will be like, trans rights are human rights. Trans child are a dead child. They'll go to their grave because these people, they can't ever admit they're wrong, because they're admitting they're wrong is admitting to abuse of hundreds of children, if not thousands. And it's the same for the parents of trans kids. They're the people who fight for it the most, because imagine being a parent having to come to terms with sterilizing and mutilating your kid for the sake of social justice or your own twisted reasons, or in some cases that you actually really care about them and you just thought it was the right thing to do. For them, it's more advantageous to actually never accept that, because the fall from that is going to be so hard. And then a very good thing is that I only saw this morning that this country is actually going to ban puberty blockers in private healthcare as well, which is absolutely great. A very keen thing the CASS report said was, so I've got to talk about the recommendations. The report included 32 recommendations, and they included stuff like the services need to be the same standard of other child and adolescent healthcare. Shocker there. It needs to be evidence-based. Shocker there. It even said in the NHS, we are an evidence-based healthcare organization. It's like, well, yeah, obviously. Screening for other comorbid issues, example, autism. Increased psychological support, including fertility counseling. That makes sense. Puberty blockers will only be used in a clinical trial basis. There is to be a competency framework or training plan developed for doctors working in this, because all the clinicians that worked in it before had no experience in gender medicine. They were just prescribing testosterone blind. And follow-through services will be for 17 to 25 years old. So they want anyone between these age groups to be cohesively looked after through the same service. And it did say clinicians should exercise caution when prescribing any of these drugs to someone below the age of 25. And that's why the trans activists have said, oh my God, you're banning trans for under 25. No, it's just saying that you should bear in mind people below this age are less likely to understand long-term consequences. Therefore, they need extra therapy and evaluation before making the decision, which is just, why don't the trans activists want this? This is the issue, is that if it is true that some people benefit from transition, which I think there is, even if it's a small number, there seems to be. And I would still like to believe that, because to not is just, it's a lot, right? I'm open to being proved wrong. If that's true, why do they not want to make the services better? Because the more that they just have an open door that any child has puberty blockers or any child has drugs, then it's going to look worse than them, because you'll get more detransitioners. Are you guys fucking delusional? But it's because their whole ideology is, if you say you're trans, then you are trans and you've always been trans. And they can't, anything that deviates that, even if it's going to completely wreck what they're fighting for, they will go down screaming. Finally, something that's really good is it said that provisions must be provided for detransitioners. So there needs to be a medical pathway for them as well. So all the recommendations were superb, and I don't know how the NHS is going to implement them, because the NHS has no money, and this is a very niche thing that requires so much to get over the ground. But, you know, let's see. Now, Stonewall has come with a surprising turn, a company that's been advocating for child abuse for a long time and sterilizing gay kids, converting gay kids, and they seem to realize that there's nowhere to hide anymore. So they've said many recommendations could make a positive impact, such as expanding provision of healthcare by moving away from a single national service towards a series of regional centres, while recognizing that there are many different treatment pathways that trans children and young people might take. Oh, okay. That's changing your tune from, you know, every child needs puberty blockers, and honestly, but without due care, training, or further capacity in the system, others could not lead to new barriers that prevent children and young people from accessing the care that they need and desire. So their message was largely positive, because, you know, it's like the gig is up, guys. You can see in plain sight what you've been advocating for, and that the services are bad. But what a lot of them are taking is the route of, oh, they've been let down because they've been on waiting lists for years. And, you know, they're taking that route. Mermaids as well, which is a charity that specifically campaigns for transitioning kids. So they are the devil. They've been known to send young girls binders behind their parents' back in the post. And they too, on their website, posted something largely positive. The CASS review, an independent review of the NHS gender services for children and young people, published today, Wednesday, the 10th of April, after almost 4 years, echoes much of this and recognises the current system is failing trans youth. We are pleased the voices and experiences of trans young people appear to have been heard and respected, and we welcome Dr. Cass's calls for trans children and young people and their families to be treated with compassion and respect. We hope for the same and for the same sharing of clear, accurate information when discussing the topic. Okay, mermaids, you've completely changed your tune, and they did a interview on Sky News, which was hilarious because the CEO was saying, we don't campaign for medical treatments, we're just here as a supportive system for transgender kids. J.K. Rowling was right on this. Honestly, J.K. Rowling, you are fucking badass. You are the most badass children's author there ever was. You know, you can't escape J.K. Rowling, guys. You can't. You know, she'll come after you if you're a hypocrite in this space. She said, absolute total shameless lies. Your ex-CEO referred children to the Tavistock Gender Clinic. Mermaids has repeatedly claimed puberty blockers are reversible, sent out breast binders to girls as young as 13, and insisted publicly that unless children are affirmed in their trans identity, they'll kill themselves. All true, true, true. Your fingerprints are all over the catastrophe of child transition, and those who funded you, campaigned for you, and allowed you to embed yourselves in healthcare systems need to be held to account. Pathetic. You are campaigning for abuse for years, and this comes out and it's just, oh well, we were never actually asking for that. And Helen Joyce has said this is when the bricks start falling, people are going to say, oh well, I never actually thought men could be women, or I never thought that females should not have access to their own spaces, because it's easier to do that. And even organizations that specifically campaign for puberty blockers and sterilizing kids and mutilation can play that game. You're part of the reason they've been given such terrible care, because mermaids campaigned and campaigned and campaigned for the Tavistock Clinic to speed up their process and get more and more kids through the door. They said, you need to be faster, you need to be faster. So that is the big reason why kids were having 1 or 2 30-minute appointments before being referred to puberty blockers, is because of mermaids and Stonewall, because they were so hot on their tails. You are instrumental to making these services terrible, and now you're playing the victim. J.K. Rowling also very kindly shared a screenshot from their website in which they are publicly advocating for puberty blockers, and this is still there. So she's straight up lying. And final reaction I want to look at from this is of Ava Santina, my personal favorite journalist. She is a journalist who's often on the Piers Morgan show, and I don't know if you are aware of the scandal of Dan Wootton on GB News, a gay journalist. When Lawrence Fox, leader of the Reclaim Party, was on there, he said that no one would want to, quote unquote, shag Ava because she is a 4.0 feminist, and she's basically hyper woke. She agrees with all of the crazy talking points, trans women in sports, that you should let teachers transition kids behind their parents' backs. Overall, she has very reductive and simplistic views, which she basically just takes packaged up from woke mobs. And God knows how people like her get well known and prominent to be on the Piers Morgan show regularly. Like, Piers Morgan, please have me on, because I swear I can do better than her already.
They've hijacked this report and said it's vindicated them. Some people are so intolerant of the alternate point of view that they're just so blind.
Yeah. That being you, Ava, you are intolerant of reality, actually, and common sense.
What she's identified is that there's no services that are holistic. There's no holistic approach to transitioning. If you're a child experiencing gender dysphoria, you don't get to go to therapy. And a lot of that is to...
She speaks as if she just knows it all, and this is information which she has just found out, and it's information she would have denied existed prior to that. So
do with the binary nature of the debate, because it's so hard and fast in each camp that it means that basically local services are too frightened to intervene or get involved. If someone's experiencing gender dysphoria...
That's because of people like you, Ava, who go nuts when anyone challenges the notion that a child actually may not be trans and is going through other things.
Dysphoria when they're 12 years old. Even if they are the perfect candidate for puberty blockers, and they should go...
No one is a perfect candidate for puberty blockers. Not one single person, in my opinion.
The idea that they would go on them without having their hand held during that, to have no therapy during that seems totally nuts to me. I just think as well, like, it's exposed the messianic zeal.
Big word there, Ava. Nice one.
Of anti-trans campaigners, because they've hijacked this report and said that it's...
No, what they've done is they've said, actually, look, we were correct. And all these years you've been telling us we were wrong. They're being vindicated because of the report. We're not weaponizing the report. We're trying to protect kids. And you are a complete fucking idiot.
I'm not saying they immediately have to access puberty blockers, even though some cases they might, but they might actually have to access therapy. That they're just so blind to the needs of these children.
We're so blind towards not wanting to do gay conversion therapy. And I would struggle to find a single gender critical person who has ever said children with a trans identity should not be given therapy. Please find it for me, because I'm pretty sure that everyone has agreed on kids who are struggling with their gender need help, but it is not puberty blockers and hormones. She makes my skin crawl, and it is... I don't want to play identity politics, but she is a straight woman who doesn't know fucking shit about LGBT, what it means to be gay, what it means to be non-conforming as a kid. There are so many words coming out of her mouth, but she's saying nothing at the same time. I can't stand her. I can't stand that bitch. So moving on, Tickle VS Giggle. You can't write this stuff, guys. Transgender woman sues female-only online refuge for alleged discrimination in landmark case. Roxanne Tickle, and I've learned this person also goes by Roxy Tickle, gross, claims she was blocked from using the Giggle for Girls app because its CEO said she was a man. Yes. So Sam Grover, I believe her name is, great person. I watched her interview this morning on Heretics, listened to it as I was getting ready, and was a great interview. She went through the whole background, basically created a social media app for females to connect and talk about female things, talk about finding housing with other females, all things female, right? And they have an AI system in which when you join the app, it can basically tell, you take a selfie, it tells whether you're male or female, quite simple. And it wasn't long before the trans activists started coming for her. She got a barrage of 1-star reviews calling her transphobic because they do not allow trans-identified males on the app. And this one disgusting individual, Roxy Tickle, decided to take her to court. And of course, like lots of other woke countries, Australia, she's Australian, I didn't add that, but they changed their Sex Discrimination Act law in, I can't remember what year it was, but it was the 2010s. They changed that to gender identity instead of sex. So abolishing female rights, basically, and conforming to ideology and non-reality. So what's funny is that this act was first drawn up in 1984, in which it talked about sex. So weird foreshadowing there. But then they changed it to gender identity. And now she was having to go to court to defend herself and say that this law is actually flawed because it removes the rights of women in this scenario. And it doesn't allow them any situation in which they say people who were born with a vagina, who have XX chromosomes, large gametes, whatever you want to say, they're not entitled to their own space. And Roxy Tickle and these trans activists, it's like you come across as so pathetic that you cannot bear the thought of any space, even an app existing in which you're not welcome. There are so many other gender inclusive apps. We've seen the same thing with Grindr that used to be where gay men could connect and do their gay men things and be very slutty gay men. And now it is gender inclusive and it has trans people all over it, including just full-blown women who aren't even attempting to look male. So that's been lost. There is so much better use of your time, Roxy Tickle. Why don't you go create your own app for trans women? And it's always the autogynephilic trans women who can't bear not being part of female spaces. And she went into all the kind of reasoning as to why this could be. If you go on Reddit and look at these trans-identifying females, some of them admit to going into female bathrooms and picking tampons and period pads out of the bins because they get aroused by it. They get turned on by it. Absolutely gross. But you can see why they would want to be privy to an app like this because then they're in spaces where females are talking about fertility, labor, periods, and the legal costs are being covered by a crowdfunding campaign. So she's raised $471,000 so far. She needs $500,000 to take this loser to court. And what a fucking waste of time. I felt so sorry for her because she used to be a screenwriter who worked in Hollywood and then had lots of issues with that in terms of her sex and being a minority. There aren't many female screenwriters. Decided to change her course of life and then become a business owner, create this app, put so much work into it. And now the app is even taken down because they can't manage all of this going on while that goes on. And this has been going on since 2021. And you know what's crazy is that no Australian press has agreed to platform this and publish it in newspapers or media. So she's having to do all of her campaigning in the UK. And again, this is why I feel very privileged to be in this country because there are people here willing to speak about it. So Roxy Tickle, I hope you burn in hell with this court case and you are going down. If they lose it, they'll have to appeal, but I'm really hoping that reality prevails. So this next one could be Roxy Tickle's sister, mother. Trans public defender Stephanie Mueller, at least she has a more normal name, representing far-left activists. This is a barrister or someone who works in a courtroom. You don't even have to understand the context of what this person's job is. Apparently they're 70 years old, but check out the footage.
Check on that. Yeah.
So we were talking A6, 845?
Yeah.
That works for me. My comment about my client?
Yeah.
I just met her. She's really nice. She's really smart. She sounds like she's got the right idea about things. I really support what she's up to, and I think it's fabulous. How about that?
God, she's accused of, what is it, criminal trespass?
In the first degree, yes.
Is she innocent or guilty?
My name is Stephanie Mueller. I'm in the directory for the Washington State Bar Association.
Do you know when her next court date is?
I do.
Could you tell me when that is?
No.
Oh,
Take
okay.
care.
So I am left speechless with this. First of all, this person couldn't possibly have a deeper voice, which is funny. With the AGP trans women, they're all about, the boobs and the makeup and the clothing, but then they always just don't care about their voice. It's like they don't even make an effort to. And it's this whole kind of fetish of a feminized man. But in what twisted legal industry does anyone think this is appropriate? If this person was a woman, they would be judged for this instantly and probably be told by someone, you cannot wear that. And whoever this person's friends are, if they have any friends or family members, if any of them have not told this deranged individual that you should not be wearing this and your breasts need to become about 10 sizes smaller, then they are not any friend or family member of yours, because this is disgusting. He's like, oh yeah, my client, like the massive overdrawn lipstick, like the massive breasts. You look like a full-on red light district dominatrix hoe from the Netherlands, which would be fine, standing in a window like, come and I will give you services, but you do not belong in a court. And the main thing I take away from this is this assertion that trans people are the most oppressed and don't have a voice. And there is no one else that would get away with this than a trans person. I saw a really funny scene from either American Dad or Family Guy. And there's a guy at a bar watching porn and the bartender's like, sorry, you can't do that here. And he goes, no, it's okay, I'm transgender. And then the bartender says, oh, okay, do whatever you like. And it's accurate. I would hope that at least most people are secretly thinking this is so twisted. This person creating a fetish around a courtroom. Like they're all, I'm not of the belief that autogynephilic people that transition are always living a fetish. I think it moves beyond that eventually. But this shit is 100% like fetish all over the shop. And if I was a defendant in this case or a witness in this case, I would actively be impaired in taking part, and perhaps the outcome would change because I would just be so gobsmacked. It's just so gross. Again, it's like the community just really does not help itself. And they're getting so much media attention. They could just cool it on, the massive breasts and the sterilizing of kids and trying to shut down any social media app that is for females. Like, just fuck off, please, and live your best lives without demanding so much of us. And just, it's just so hilarious. So we've come to the section of reacting to woke TikToks, and a bit of a change this week because we're going to look at COVID themed woke TikToks. And all of these were recorded in the last few months of 2023 or 2024. So just bear that in mind, how far we are from the pandemic and what these people still believe in.
A few weeks ago, I found out that the person that I love most in this world is no longer masking. Their entire family, including 4 small children, have stopped masking. And yesterday I texted her and I said, hey, I can't get past the fact that you all are no longer masking. Like, with everything that's happening in the world right now, with COVID, with RSV, with measles, with everything that's coming back, not masking is wild behavior to me.
Masking is not a term used in the UK. And the whole mask culture and that it being associated with the left is also not a thing in the UK. No one talks about masks here. Nobody. The only people I see wearing masks are Chinese people and people who are quite old, you know, working in a store, which is fine. You know, do you? If I see anyone else out of that, I'm like, that's weird. But, you know, immunocompromised. It is very rare you see anyone wearing masks. And we do not use the term masking. I just think that's cringe. Also, measles, is there any evidence that masks stop the spread of that?
I need to know that the people in my life care about their health and the health of the people around them, to which I received a 3.5-page dissertation justifying their behavior.
Yeah, no shit. I've learned that with these kind of people, less is more. I've learned this the hard way from people approaching me about my channel and judging me, saying I'm isms and phobics. I've learned that when I give them the time of day and type back a big paragraph or send them a big voice note, that just gives them more fire to attack me, and they can sense insecurity. Right. They can sense that I want them to understand me and that I am, quote unquote, desperate to be heard, and that I, deep down, I don't want to be considered as a hateful person by anyone. Moving forward, I made a TikTok video called Challenging Your Assumptions About Me. And I decided that anyone who comes to me and decides to go off, I can say, watch this. Thank you very much. Good day to you. And I don't care. And, you know, watch some of my longer videos. Maybe you'll see that there's a lot more to it and that I'm pretty moderate overall. But this person, it's the honest self-centeredness of all of it. Just because you believe something does not mean everyone else has to believe it. And you know what? You could spend more time on addressing this issue with your hair, because I'm sorry, it looks like you bought a mop from Walmart or wherever you are, and put it on your head. It looks like a dog is on your head. And I don't usually comment on people's looks, but seriously.
Including classics such as, we're not breaking any rules.
Which they're not.
We're doing way better than everyone else around us. We don't go anywhere if we feel sick. My personal favorite was paraphrased, you couldn't possibly understand because you don't have kids.
They're not breaking any rules. You don't have kids, which is why you have the time of your life to come on TikTok and talk about something that was relevant a long time ago. Children are not at risk, pretty much virtually no risk from getting COVID. They have a higher risk of health complications from taking the vaccine, an exponentially higher health risk from being taken out of schools for a year and a half, stunting their mental development. And this is why during COVID, people's brains were so dead, because while COVID was going on, I was not pro all of this stuff. At the beginning, I understood it, but then I got very sick of it. And I tried to speak to people who were very COVID scared, saying, what about the long-term effects of keeping people at home and not letting kids go to school? Poor mental health, substance abuse, alcoholism, falling behind on learning and development. And everyone just sort of brushed that off because it wasn't relevant. And it shows the human incapability of understanding long-term consequences. We're all about short-term gain. And when you can get your mind into thinking of, you know, how will this affect me tomorrow, you can understand the bigger picture and you can get more perspective. This person is just, I just don't understand how anyone can listen to this and take it seriously.
It's illogical to expect children to continue masking and stay in lockdown.
It is.
So I responded and I said, you know, as I already stated, it's your choice to make.
It
I'm
is.
sure you will do everything you can to keep your family safe. The best thing for me right now is to take a step away from this relationship.
Good.
I love you all, but I have to take care of myself first and foremost. I hope you understand.
Why is narcissism so correlated with left ideology? It's this moral high ground they take of you need to make your decisions based off everyone else. You always have to put everyone else around you before you, but then at the same time, all they can think of is themselves. I have to look after myself. Like, does this person even are they even immunocompromised? If you want a reason to not participate in society and not do anything, be lazy, then just be lazy. You don't have to blame masking on it. It's just never enough for them. It always has to be, you're not doing enough for me, and wider society. And unless a disease is a lot more lethal, then if you have an issue with getting COVID, then that's a you issue. Like, stay at home, find a work from home job, isolate yourself, become a loser, like, stop living. Entrenched in left ideology is apathy and laziness because everyone wants the government to do everything for them. People are scared of ambition, responsibility, achievement. I kid you not, when you prioritize those things, your life gets so much better because you feel like you have control over your future. But these people are miserable because the less you feel in control of your environment and your prospects, the more depressed and hopeless you'll become. Like, that is just fact. She has convinced herself that she's in the situation where in actual fact, there is so much she could be doing with her life. You said you can't have them in your lives anymore. They are very lucky you made that decision, and they probably won't regret it because you are a head wreck with the hair of a dog, head wreck.
And she said, sure, I can't force you to stay.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
With me to the Eras tour in LA as someone who still doesn't care to be infected with COVID. Here's what's in my bag if you want to see all the details. There's a whole video on that. But don't look at the comments. It is a cesspool of ableist garbage. Anyway, I decided that if I was going to go at all, I was not only going to...
Maybe there's something to be said for when you make a video and 95% of the comments are ridiculing you, disagreeing with you, saying you're fucking nuts. Maybe that's a sign that you're fucking nuts, actually. This person is getting ready for a Taylor Swift concert, which is also weirdly correlated with the left. But anyway, Taylor Swift concert, and has put together a little kit for COVID. So this is full of masks, nasal sprays, chewing gum, and then there's a sign saying free masks, just in case anyone wants to get in on that, which I'm sure no one will. You want to be a savior. That's all about it. Oh, I'm such a savior. I'm going to protect everyone. Getting ready for a concert. Like, you just ruin everything. It destroys the fun. Why is wokeness so anti-fun? And sometimes taking a risk is fun. I would argue going to a concert without a mask is not a risk. There are more risky things you could do. It's just being so fearful of everything. You know, you might as well put a bubble around you and be one of those people who is allergic to every single thing and has to live in a bubble. I don't know if those people exist, but I swear there are, you know, TV shows or stories about those kind of people.
Keep myself safe, but give others the option to keep themselves safe as well. So I brought a bunch of extra masks. Spoilers, no one took me up on it, but I was moving pretty quickly.
Of course no one took you up on it, because you're a fucking loser.
Through crowds, because, you know, I didn't want to spend a lot of time in crowded spaces. That said, in the past when I have made the offer, people take them. It is what it is. As a fellow Sagittarius, we're doing an homage to the archer with the necklaces. And as you can see, I nailed it on the location of the heart. It doesn't interfere with my mask at all.
You look like a joke. It's just beyond words. It's like transhumanistic shit. Like I said, the apathy. People that wanted excuses in life to not try, to stay at home, to hide from the world, they are all desperately missing COVID. They're like, bring it back. I want a reason to, you know, not feel guilty.
When you choose to go out in public and go indoors without a KN95 or an N95 mask, you are making the choice for other people's bodies.
So even with COVID, you can't escape the trans shit because all of you know who this bitch is. It's between her, possibly her and Jeffrey Marsh, that are the worst LGBT TikTokers, the most intolerable. One thing I'll add is that this K95 and N, whatever she said, why are they making masks sound like models of guns? Do we need to know the name of the masks? Like, is it not enough to say, here's the mask, I'm wearing the mask? They have to have individual names?
As an immunocompromised person with asthma who's disabled and trans, I not only am a more high risk to get sick, but then when I do get sick, I have less of a chance of even getting treated. And that was shown today. I went to a new doctor's office.
You are not special, girl. Obsessed, chronically online. Nobody cares. Honestly, nobody cares. First of all, asthma. I have asthma, and I do have an autoimmune disease called ulcerative colitis, but You know, I don't use it as an excuse to force other people to do things around me. I look after that myself. It's a me problem, right? She is saying because she has asthma that she's immunocompromised. Everything's so exaggerated. Disabled. Can you talk a bit more about that? Can we talk a bit more about that? You know, what is your disability? I've heard her say loads of times she's disabled, but she's never talked about what it is. And on top of that, she's loading her body with testosterone because she's non-binary. So that's your decision, girl, to take testosterone. And if that comes with disadvantages, I highly suspect it does not in terms of getting medical attention, but you like to think it is because you are obsessed with being oppressed, then it is still your choice to take testosterone and possibly have very high chance of health risks as you grow older. This is like the non-binary stuff and taking hormones and top surgery. It's just so sad because it is a full-on fucking trend.
Try to be established as a patient. They said that maybe if I want my doctor to wear a mask around me, then maybe I shouldn't actually be a patient with them.
Yeah, because all of these people are so sick of you. The same with the other girl. Oh yeah, maybe we shouldn't be friends. And that's what I'm going to, you know, if anyone is like, oh, I don't know if I want you around me anymore because of what you talk about. Okay, like, I'm happy to grant you that. God, right? A doctor turned your way because they're like, I don't have time for this. I don't have time for you. It's amazing people on the internet give you so much time, but it's because they hate watch you.
There was an immunocompromised person who was put on a psych hold in the emergency room and refused pain meds for a migraine because they were asking their doctors and the nurse practitioners to wear masks in their room. Because
that's a lot that you have going on. So in a psych ward, immunocompromised, refused pain meds for having a migraine. Like, you have a lot of stuff going on if this is true. And perhaps, but at the same time, she's just always on TikTok and she's always wearing, like, you know, not to my taste, but she has this style going on. So obviously she has enough mental stability to like get herself up in the morning and get dressed and everything. She shouldn't be on TikTok. If she's struggling with this much stuff, she should be focusing on, you know, herself, sorting that out. But no, it's easier to blame it on everyone on TikTok for her issues.
Because they're immunocompromised. They were told that they were being hysterical and over dramatic. We can't help the fact that we're high risk. You can help the fact that you're spreading diseases. COVID is not over. It's not like minimal either. This is major. We have people who are high risk who have been isolated for years because people just want to get back to normal. My normal is now not being able to go to the doctor because my doctor won't wear a mask.
Your normal is just, you want to be so oppressed that eventually you are just going to be a little speck and someone is going to trot on you, you know? Because you don't have any self-respect. Like, go and live your life. Is it so impossible to just enjoy a bit of your life and realize that just because you have asthma that you're probably fine and, you know, you're still in your 20s or whatever, like, you're going to be fine. And it just must be, to have compassion for her, it must be so miserable to live in this girl's brain and have doctors telling you that you're being hysterical. Like, that is so embarrassing. I really hope people like this can see the light one day and say, oh my God, I can't believe I was so brainwashed.
Your comfort is not more important than disabled people being able to live.
But that's not the choice, is it? Just because I go to the cinema or the supermarket, that does not stop disabled people from living. If you want to stay home and become an incel, then go for it. But the rest of us, life is too short. You know, we have a limited time on this earth.
Hey guys, it's Tanya. How are you? It is a Sunday afternoon and I wanted to show off my KN95 mask.
Because I needed to know the name again.
This is the kind of mask. It very loosely, elastically goes around the ears. It is a nice fit. If you can see here, it gives me plenty of room to breathe. It's not too tight on my nose. It's not tight.
Again, K95 mask. So we've got to the point now where masks are not just utilitarian, but they actually feel the need to come on and review the mask and talk about its design. You look like a bird. This mask looks like a beak on you. So no, we don't need to understand why the aesthetic is great. Like, you look ridiculous. You have nearly every inch of your face covered. You have a mask, glasses, which are fogging up. You have massive pink headphones and you have a bright orange cap. The only thing we can see are your eyebrows. And she's like, oh, it's a Sunday. Like, nobody cares what day it is. Nobody cares. You look like a bird.
On my mouth, you can see it comes out.
Like a beak.
Nice color, black. It comes in other colors. You can see.
It's a nice color, black. It looks so average. This is an average mask. At least if it had a cheetah design or some cool print, like I could get on board with that. But this is completely average.
Here, you can hear me very clearly. I'm walking outside to
Unfortunately.
try to get some fresh air and exercise. And
You should be doing more of that. You should just be doing the fresh air and exercise and ditching all of this extra shit.
it's keeping me safe. And there's nothing hard about wearing this. It's nothing uncomfortable. It fits nicely.
Actually uncomfortable for us to look at you. That would be a good point. I just can't see anything but a bird just like squawk in this video. It's just so grating.
My 83-year-old dad wears this. Anybody can wear this. So this is just a reminder that if you're
Yeah, it's not hard to put a mask on your face. I think anyone can wear it.
lucky enough, and if you get the privilege, you'll get to grow into old age and be healthy. Not all of us.
I mean, that's the only interesting thing she said is it's true. You know, you can say, oh no, I'm old now. You know, I just turned 30. It's like, oh no, but it's a privilege to turn every age because the alternative is that you're dead.
Be kind to people. High-risk people have every right to be in society as much as anybody else. We have a right to go to the doctor safely. We have a right to do essential service.
No one's stopping you. Like, you're a high-risk person. Go to the doctor, wear your mask, get your vaccine. Literally no one's stopping you. And there's always been high-risk individuals pre-COVID. You know, the flu comes around every year. The flu is basically the same as COVID. We've had that every year. There are people with COPD, other issues with their lungs, like the list goes on, and they get the flu and they die. It's like how so many old people die. They get the flu.
Safely. Wearing a mask is not a big deal at all. Have some love in your heart. Have some compassion, because one day it can be you. Don't be ableist. Don't be eugenist. Please be kind.
Eugenist, says the bird.
Have a heart. Show some love. Wear a mask.
All right. Again, can't escape. It doesn't matter where you go. You can't escape the trans.
If you're a cisgender person who is able to look at this and this,
I'm not even gonna. I didn't see what that was, but it's already ridiculous.
and it still doesn't compel you to wear a mask in public spaces, seriously, don't even bother calling yourself an ally to trans people. And if you're a white person who is able to look at this, and that somehow doesn't manage to compel you to wear a mask, then don't bother claiming that you're anti-racist. And definitely don't claim that you give a damn about disability justice if you're an able-bodied person who won't wear a mask to prevent spreading disease to disabled, immunocompromised, and chronically
Able justice person. Like, what kind of phrase is that? And so I'm not claiming to be a trans ally in this way. If that's what a trans ally means, is wearing a mask, then I guess I'm not. And I'm also definitely not an anti-racist because I just believe in equality. And I'm not racist, but I don't have to believe in anti-racism to not be racist. Anti-racism is just, oh, I believe in critical race theory. I'm so sorry about this sun and the lighting. I don't usually record during the day, so this is just like really annoying. Maybe I can just sync. Okay, no, that's worse. So yeah, I'm sorry. If you're listening, you're lucky because the sun is blinding me.
ill members of your community. Y'all have two options at this point. Either get your shit together and show solidarity with members of your community who are most impacted by COVID by wearing a fucking mask, or just admit that you don't care about these people and move the fuck on.
No, the thing is, most of us have our own shit going on. We have our own lives, and we want to enjoy our lives and not obsess over COVID. Have you noticed how trans men, I mean, they're so passable. Like, look, this is a better beard than I could grow. I can do the mustache, but I can't. My cheeks are hopeless. But with trans men, they either have kind of normal male voices or they have this like squeaky male voice that's kind of like that. Don't know how else to describe it, but they either have the squeak or they have the norm. Just an observation there. This person's name is Desert Queer.
But don't waste their time lying to them about caring about them if you don't care if you spread disease to them.
That's okay. Well, I guess with my list, tell trans people I care about them. Okay, well, I guess I can take that off my list. So much time freed up today.
One of the hardest things about being medically vulnerable in the pandemic is the constant expectation that you be happy for everyone you know who's partaking in activities that put your life in danger, that spread COVID.
Where are these talking points from? Like, again, this is just not something that happens in the UK. We are so much more concerned with other things. But who puts this expectation on immunocompromised people that you need to be happy for the rest of people living their lives? Like, who says that?
That, contribute to that undertone of eugenics we have going on right now, where only the elderly and the already unwell are dying. It's really hard to have to be happy over and over and over again for people whose actions say, I don't care if you live or die, but you be happy that I have a new boyfriend.
She looks like she's on coke, and she probably is on coke. The crazy in her eyes, I just feel so sorry for these people, because it is just so miserable to be in this headspace. And it's funny to watch, but it's crazy. You would think all of these people are just parodies, like not real people. They're not real. There is so much going on in people's lives that they just don't have enough time in the day to be thinking about all this shit and thinking about you. Why is this narrative just feeding people to be so self-centered and narcissistic? You're just gross. Imagine going on a date with one of these people and thinking, oh my God, how can I get out of here? That's it for today, everyone. Done with the COVID TikToks. I'm glad we got through that. But if you're still here, thank you. Let me know what you think of the CASS report. Is this going to actually progress the trans healthcare situation? Is the NHS even going to be able to handle this? Please subscribe if you've not. Click the notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos. And I keep asking this every time, but none of you are doing it. So go and rate me on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Go do it. Please, if you support me, you're doing it. You're doing it. And I will see you soon. Thank you so much. Bye.